When the market goes up, you go up. When the market goes down, you don't go down. Save Money Radio, your money safe and sound.
For those of you who've been listening to me for a long time, you know that I've been on the air for 10 years. I've been hosting Safe Money Radio, and you hear me almost every single week talk about my good friend Ed Slott, America's IRA expert. I have been a part of the Ed Slott Master Elite IRA group since 2010, and today I am so thrilled to have Ed Slott with me as a guest on Safe Money Radio. Ed, thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, it's great to be here live, actually. That's fantastic. Yeah, I'm real.
That's right, live on video and on
Yeah.
radio, so this is an awesome experience for us. So, Ed, I want to ask you, like I said, I joined back in 2010. I think I was Group 10 of the advisors. Tell us a little bit about, you being a CPA, why did you create the Ed Slott Advisor Group? What's it all about?
Because people needed competent advisors. Now, you may say, well, my advisor made me a ton of money. That's only half the game. That's what most people don't understand about retirement. It's not how much you have, it's how much you keep after taxes. Taxes are the single biggest factor that separates people from their retirement dreams. And most advisors just don't have a plan for that. And I noticed that back in my CPA days 30 years ago, and I would constantly see clients coming in and coming into retirement and making all kinds of horrible, expensive, needless mistakes because I would say, well, who's your advisor? Well, this is the guy, he's a broker, he helps me invest, but now I have to take money out, and he didn't know about rollovers, he didn't know about options, he didn't know about the IRA. Well, now it's too late. Now you have losses. Remember, these rules are very rigid and restrictive, and you have one chance to get this right, especially, Brad, as you know, when you're coming out of a plan, maybe just before retirement or even 5 years out, and you've worked 20, 30, 40 years, and you now looking at retirement and you have options. The decision you make now, the choice you make, may affect your largest single asset, maybe more than the value of your home. And you have maybe one chance to get this right. So I saw this problem, I saw a void. And most clients of mine, that's consumers like you, probably thought because they had an advisor, it was taken care of. Constantly, I would have people say, when I asked them, well, who's taking care of this? And I found out after years and years, I realized here's what people thought. And the advisors too. The advisors always pass the blame on to someone else. Like the advisor would say, the financial advisor say, well, the accountant takes care of that. And the accountant would say, well, the attorney takes care of that. The attorney would say, well, the cat takes care of that. But nobody took care of anything.
Right.
So I saw this huge void. Now, I was out there, as you know, doing programs to train advisors on these rules because you need a specialized knowledge. It's an entire field in its own. And over time, advisors were telling me that went to these programs like you did, you realize, wow, these are deep waters. And this affects every person with a retirement account, and their retirement savings are at stake. They could lose a chunk. With the market, you lose in points. The market goes up, you make money. You lose it, you lose money, but when it comes back, you get it back. If you lose your money to taxes, you're never getting that money back.
It's gone.
That's just gone. So I created, based on advisors just like you that told me for years, why don't you start like some kind of advanced study group? I want to be the person that knows about this, that has that specialized knowledge, so when the clients accumulate money, I can help them take it out in retirement. You know what people's number one concern is? Because I do programs, I see consumers all over the country. It's not about making money anymore. They're not into the next hot stock or fund. They want to keep what they have.
Right.
They don't want to lose it to taxes. They want it to last as long as they do and beyond for their beneficiaries. So I created what started out almost, I'd say about 16 years ago, maybe more, 15, 16 years ago, what we call Ed Slott's Elite IRA Advisor Group. And now we're up to 400 members like yourself. Now, you're one of our senior members, over 10 years in there at our highest level, Master Elite. And if you're a consumer listening or watching, you got to realize that, you know what? Is your advisor up on this? Does your advisor have the specialized knowledge you're counting on them to have to take you through retirement and to take care of your family after that? I'm finding, and it's still the case, now you may be amazed at this statistic, my own statistic, so you can't look it up anywhere. 99% of advisors do not have this specialized knowledge that you need them to have. Now, people listening might say, Ed, are you saying only 1% of advisors know anything about this? No. It's much lower than that. I round it up. It's bad out there. That's why I created this group for people like Brad who want to know more so they can do the best job for their client. If you've worked hard for your money, 20, 30, 40 years of building, working, saving, investing, sacrificing, you don't want to lose it to somebody that didn't know the rules on how to get that money out. Why is it so critical? Because most of the money you're saving, or if you've been saving, is, as you know, Brad, in tax-deferred accounts.
Yes.
401ks, IRAs. That money has not yet been taxed. If you take it out the wrong way or you break the rules, the tax can be running out like an avalanche, and we're in avalanche country, so you know what I mean. I mean, nobody wants an avalanche of taxes. That's why you have an advisor like Brad here and our other elite advisors all over the country.
I'll never forget, Ed, I went to the first meeting in 2009, and so there was a lot going on in our world in 2009 during the financial crisis.
Right.
And I thought, well, I'm going to get some CE, and I'm going to listen to this guy I see on TV all the time, and I've read his books, and I was overwhelmed with what I did not know. I literally could not believe how stupid I felt. I thought, I don't know any of this stuff. And so I thought, I've got to join this group. I've got to study and drill down. And the greatest blessing has been being a part of the group for over 10 years now, having access to all of our technical consultants,
Right.
emailing, texting, calling, anytime I come across something that I don't know, which that happens. You come across something you've never heard of before, and knowing that if I don't know the answer, I know the people who know the answer to this.
Or even if you think you know the answer, you can call to make sure, because the client has to know 100% right.
Absolutely. I will always say, I'm going to verify this with the Ed Slott group before
Right.
I answer this question.
In effect, we're his back office. So if you're listening to this and you're saying, I've built a substantial amount of retirement, I don't want to lose it to an advisor that's not trained as well. I don't know why every advisor doesn't take this training, but they don't. Most advisors, I hate to say this, are trained as salesmen. They
Sure.
just want to bring in the money. They don't want to spend a lot of time learning. To his credit, Brad and our other elite members have made an investment, a substantial investment in time and money to learn for your benefit. We had a new tax act, the Secure Act. You're on top of your game for that because we give you that information. You study on your own. I mean, I would want if I had an advisor, I'd want to know that advisor is at the top of their game because my retirement savings are at stake.
Sure. And that's the beauty to the group. So my clients and also people that listen to me on the radio know that at least 2 times a year I'm going to say, I'm gone to the next Ed Slott training. I'm going to be gone for 4 or 5 days. And our books are about that thick of all the changes that have happened in the previous 6 months. But we also have the benefit of our weekly meetings that we have where we're drilling down very deep, and there's no way we can cover it all in 4 or 5 days. And so even with that being said, you mentioned the Secure Act.
Right.
So, January 1, 2020, the Secure Act actually, I guess, takes force. It was signed into law by Donald Trump on December the 20th, 2019. And you'll say this often, the IRS, why in the world did they do the things they do? They come up with these things like 59 and a half and 70 and a half, and then they come in and change those numbers. They change the rules.
Well, let me correct you there. IRS they're easy to blame, but this is Congress who does this.
Yes.
IRS has the toughest job. Congress doesn't know what they're doing. Let's face it. They call it the Secure Act. Here, I'm going to give you a little secret about whenever Congress names a tax act, you know what I'm going to say, like the Secure Act, you can bet it always does the opposite.
Sure.
That's for sure.
Yes.
So take that to heart when you hear a tax act called, the Secure Act. You better watch your wallet on that one.
Right.
And that's why you need an advisor that's up to date on the rules. So it's Congress that creates all these rules. They don't know what they're doing. They have a bunch of staffers and lobbyists that write most of the stuff. And then it becomes law, and it's the IRS's job to interpret what they think Congress meant. And if you ever read the actual law, it's not even written in English. It's written in Sanskrit. And you have to have somebody translate it. So that's what the IRS does. That's what we do for you, for our group.
Yes.
We give it to you in English so you can explain it to clients, and they know how to take advantage of it. The Tax Act is loaded with traps, but it's also loaded with opportunities where you can make the tax law work for you, for your benefit long term. That's something Brad has learned to do with over 10 years of having this specialized knowledge all the time. It's not like he goes to one seminar a week, a year, or some advisors tell you they trained and they were on a phone call that while they were online for
Right.
10 minutes. I mean, this is really hardcore training. It's 3 or 4 days, like you said, of workshops where we go through books, we go through case studies and new rulings and cases and law changes and how it could impact every type of client, plus the webinars and the updates in between, plus, as you say, the back office support. So if you're listening to this and you're saying, I wonder if my advisor has that kind of backup for me. Here's the answer. No, they don't.
Yeah. And they can always go to www.irahelp.com and look up on your website, find
Right.
an advisor, and see if their advisor's listed on that website.
Right. Probably not. They should be, but probably not, because not every advisor is going to go to the extent that Brad does to do the best job for their clients.
So let's talk about this for a minute, the Secure Act, setting up every community for retirement act. Let's pull out one of those things that if you don't know the information, and I know you say all the time, with a lot of people in their profession, they don't know that they don't know.
It's just as you said before, and everybody says the same thing. The first time they go to one of our intensive advisor training program, which is our 2-day program, before you even get to the elite level, and then there's the master's level where you are. So you're
Right.
at the top of your game. But I find that in almost everyone, and we've been doing these over 20 years, and these are intense 2-day programs. We go through 400 pages of material, as you know, in 2 days. I would say by around 11 o'clock on the first day, almost half the group is saying, I didn't know how much I didn't know. I
Right.
thought I knew this stuff. And then they're thinking, how could I even be in business? So I'm thinking, how can the 99% of advisors call themselves true financial advisors if they don't know how to protect and grow your retirement savings?
Sure. A great example of that, just, we can pick 100 things, but
Yeah.
let's take QCDs.
Right. Qualified charitable distributions.
I'll ask a client that's coming in to see me for the first time. I'll know that they're above the age of 70. I'll say, are you charitably inclined? They'll say yes. And I'll say, well, are you using QCDs? And they'll look at me like a deer in the headlights and say, what's a QCD?
Which means, again, they're costing themselves money.
Of course.
Now, the accountant should have mentioned that to them. You know when the accountant mentions it to them? When they come in for their taxes and the accountant says, you know what you should have done last year? Well, that's no good. Nobody wants woulda, coulda, shoulda advice.
Sure. So let's talk about for a minute the qualified charitable distribution. How does that affect, or how can that help someone in retirement to make use of a QCD?
Well, this brings up the fact that the tax law is constantly changing. That's why you need an advisor, somebody like Brad that studies this full time, or he has support from a group like us. We're an education company, so he's locked in to a group that is constantly on these things. You may only see when the president signs an act into law, but under the radar, as you know, Brad, from going to our training, there's cases and rulings and authority that comes out that changes the rules all the time. So this is a perfect example. We had forget the Secure Act, that's the new one, but 2 years ago we had a tax act called the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act that most of you know already. If you did your taxes in 18 was the first year under that act, you weren't getting tax deductions anymore for your charitable contributions. And I've heard people tell me, they say, well, I went to my accountant's office, I showed him all my canceled checks. He says, you don't get deductions, but I have checks. But you don't get it, but I have checks.
Right.
He had to explain they didn't do away with the deduction, but they raised the standard deduction so high, which is a good thing, that most people don't itemize anymore. And in order to get a charitable deduction, you have to itemize. So you probably have come across this. So what the great thing is about the qualified charitable distribution, QCD, more people are benefiting, the ones who know to use it, that have an advisor like Brad to tell them about it, because even the accountants, when they tell them about it, it's too late. The damage is done. You want to know what to do now and into the future. That's why they call it planning, going proactive, not reactive. So the only negative thing about the QCD, it doesn't apply to more people. It only applies to IRA owners who are 70 and a half years old or older. Now, even though the new required minimum distribution age, RMD age, is now 72, this age stayed at 70 and a half. So you have an opportunity, if you're an IRA owner or a beneficiary who is actually 70 and a half or older, you can give to charity right through your IRA directly by making a direct transfer from your IRA to the charity. Now, I'm not saying give more money to get a deduction. Under that theory, if you gave all your money away, yeah, you'd have no taxes.
Right.
I'm talking about take the gifts you give normally. I'm not saying to give more. Just do the gifting you're already doing a different way, and you'll save a boatload in taxes. Why? Because you're already getting the higher standard deduction. With the QCD, you get the higher standard deduction and, in effect, the charitable deduction. You don't really get the charitable deduction. You get something better, an exclusion from income. So you get both. The money has to go directly from your IRA to the charity. That's something like somebody like Brad is educated on, so more of his clients, probably more of your clients are doing this, and saving a fortune and helping the charities they feel that they want to support. So they're getting this money out of their IRA at no tax, and it can also go towards satisfying your RMD. So it's a big tax saver just doing the giving you were already going to do, but saving a boatload in taxes along the way. Now, your clients are probably used to doing that. I bet you they're thrilled when they see it on the return now, and they can exclude it from income.
There's two things about it. So there's a couple of hurdles you got to cross. The first thing is, especially in the Midwest where I'm from, most people are charitably inclined. They give to their churches. They give in their community. And they can't get past the fact that they're not physically putting a check in the contribution plate at church.
I know. You have to educate the charities. That's what you have to do. They have to be able to set up a way, which I'm sure you've done, for it to go from the IRA to the charities, whether it's the church, the alma mater, the hospital, the medical center, whatever their cause is, right to that checking account. But once they do it, they just do it that way every year, and they'll save more on their taxes than ever before, giving the same gifts they were usually giving. I'll give you an example. Let's say somebody normally gives $10,000, just to make an easy example. If they do it this way, instead of the old way, under the old way, they get no benefit out of that gift if they're getting the standard deduction.
Right.
Under this way, if they happen to be, let's say, in the 24% bracket, they're going to save $2,400 right off their taxes, making the same exact gift. Now, don't you want that money in your pocket? You know, when I've mentioned this to charities, and I tell them, this is how much they're going to save, you know what their first reaction is? Oh, that's more money they can give us.
That's right. Yeah. And that's, for a lot of people, even if you're not charitably inclined, say, I'm not a member of a church, I don't do anything in the community. The other issue is, like what you already said, the required minimum distribution. If you're above 70 and a half prior to the Secure Act, or age 72 now going forward, you have got to take the required minimum distribution. That is taxable income to you. But if you're using the qualified charitable distribution, that is a way to make that satisfy the required minimum distribution and not pay tax on it. Why would you not want to do that?
And that's just what you want to do. You want to bring that IRA balance down at the lowest possible tax cost. This is zero. This is the best deal you're going to get. Now that's just one. That's just one planning strategy that you use with clients because you have specialized knowledge in this area. And the reason I keep using the term specialized knowledge for you and other members of our elite advisor group is because, let me give you a medical analogy. Most people have a general practitioner doctor, right?
Sure.
But he's not a cardiologist. He's not a neurologist. He's not a specialist. Sometimes you need a specialist. When your retirement savings are at risk, you need a specialist. The average advisor who helps you manage money, even if they do it well, is not good enough because it's what you can keep that counts.
So, Ed, I'm glad you said that. My people that listen to me, especially over the last 10 years, have heard me say many times when I was 27 years old, I had a brain tumor. I had a massive brain tumor. And so those of you listening can't see it, but those of you watching, you actually can still see my scar that runs all the way down the side of my head. And so when they found that tumor, because I had a seizure in my sleep, they did not send me to my local doctor, who then said, yeah, we can take care of this right here. They sent me off to a specialist, and my doctor actually could not do the surgery. The neurologist at the hospital where they discovered it could not do the surgery. I had to go to a very specialized doctor, actual team of doctors, to remove that tumor from my brain. So whatever the situation is, especially when it comes to taxes and retirement plans, 401ks, 403bs, TSPs, 457 plans, the list goes on and on and on. You want someone that has very, very specialized knowledge, because there is a tumor inside that account. It's a tax tumor. You touch it the wrong way, it's going to be taxable immediately. And part of the benefit of the Ed Slott Group is that when we do see these case studies and we see where people have made these mistakes, and then they've paid for a private letter ruling to go before the Supreme Court and say, well, I didn't know, or my advisor didn't know. They're always wanting to blame it on someone else. And we get to see, these
these are
examples.
real cases. And one of the things I always tell consumers, because I see the cases and rulings where people lose chunks of money, you can learn from them. But you know what? There's an old saying, learn from your mistakes. I think that's kind of a dumb saying. Yeah. I'd rather not learn from the mistakes, I'd rather not make them.
Learn from someone else's mistakes.
I'd rather learn from someone else's mistakes.
Right.
And you've been exposed to all of them through your training over years and years. That's a huge advantage over the average advisor that doesn't know what he doesn't know. And that's dangerous.
Sure. So let's talk about something that might confuse some of our listeners.
For a change.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the Secure Act, I came across this at the very end of the year when I was starting to look. We keep in our office a list of all the people who are turning 70 and a half.
Oh, right.
Now we have a list of people that are turning 72 because it changed. But it is possible for, let's say, a husband to fall under the 70 and a half rule and the wife to fall under the 72 rule. Explain that for RMDs.
Yeah, well, okay, this is why you need an advisor, because the law came into effect so quickly, as you said, December 20th, January 1st, it's in effect, that the banks and the big financial institutions couldn't react. So in 2020, they already started sending out these RMD letters to people that turned 70 and a half in 2020 and said, remember, you have to take an RMD. No, they don't. Luckily, they have somebody like Brad that says, hold your horses. They're just wrong. It's not that they're wrong. They couldn't stop the presses.
Right.
So IRS had to issue a special announcement to say we're going to give them another chance to send a corrected notice.
Right.
But if you didn't have an advisor to say, hold on, that's not correct, and be confident to know that the advisor's right and the big company just couldn't stop the presses by giving out incorrect information. So the rule is, if you turn 70 and a half in 2019, you're still under the old rules. And for those of you, this been going on for years. Nobody knows when they're 70 and a half. So I'm going to make it easy for you if you know to figure out if you can get the new rules. You get the new rules if you turn 70 and a half in 2020 or later. But forget about that. Nobody knows when that is. Right. But most people know their birthday. If you were born on July 1st, 1949 or later, write it down, July 1st, 1949 or later, you get the new rules. You can wait till 72.
That's it. So it's possible for a husband and wife, if their birthday is one day apart, if one's June 30th and one's July 1st, one falls under 70 and a half, one falls under 72 rule.
And their starting dates for that one day is 2 years apart.
Absolutely right. I had someone come into the office this week, and she had the letter you're talking about where she said, this is what I have to take out for this year. And I said, when's your birthday? She said, I turned 70 in October of this last year. Then I said, you can throw that letter away.
Right.
Because you won't be 70 and a half until 2020. The Secure Act changed that. Your RMD is not until you're age 72.
Right, but the average advisor doesn't have the confidence in himself or the education to say, throw that letter away. They say, oh, it's from the bank. It must be right. Do it.
Exactly. So from the Secure Act, I know there's so many different angles. There's there's things in there about adoption.
Right.
The other big thing, though, I know, is the death of the stretch IRA. Such a big deal. I've talked about the stretch IRA on my show for years and years. Talk to us a little bit about how the Secure Act changed the stretch IRA and what it means for a non-spouse to inherit money from someone that
Right.
wasn't a spouse.
Congress actually pulled the rug out from everybody. In the middle of the night, they changed long-standing, decades-long rules that people relied on to make their retirement plans. They changed it in the ninth inning of the game. So here's what happened. In the past, if you named a beneficiary, say like your grandchild, they could stretch, and that's just a word that was made up. It's not in the tax code. Right. The grandchild could take RMDs and extend it over his life expectancy. So that could be 50, 60, 70 years. Congress decided it needs money, and where do they always look? They always hit on people's retirement accounts. They always find new ways to separate you from your retirement savings, because the way Congress feels about retirement savings, tax-deferred savings, it's a big, juicy steak for them. It's the low-hanging fruit. And they know we all made that deal. We got a tax deduction one day, and they know that money hasn't been taxed. And there's trillions in there. And they know they need money. And it's easy to go after these people because it's kind of a way of raising taxes without directly saying we're raising your taxes.
Right.
So they're accelerating the taxes to your beneficiaries, not to you. So that grandchild now would have to take all that money down in 10 years. They're not getting the long stretch. But there are solutions, and that's why you need an advisor that is up on this, that can come up with solutions, because remember, this is effective now. If you're breathing, that means you still have time to to fix this, to review it and fix it. Everybody that's named a trust needs to review, probably revise, and maybe scrap the plan altogether. That's why you need an advisor that has this kind of knowledge to see what are the alternative solutions, because most beneficiaries now will be stuck with the 10-year rule. And the average beneficiary, let's say the IRA owner dies, 85 years old, the beneficiary might be 50 or 60, and in their own peak earnings years, they may be at their own top rates, and rates in the future will probably go up, so they get hit in that 10 years while they're in their top earnings years. So there's things that can be done, and that's why you need an advisor that has all the resources available. This is mainly only for non-spouses. Spouses are exempt, and there's certain other groups that are exempt, but most non-spouses will be under the 10-year rule, including trusts. So some solutions might be looking more at Roth conversions now to soften the blow in the 10 years, or even things like permanent life insurance. It may be a better vehicle to establish or to get what you did have before. I think it's going to be a better plan. And for those of you who have advisors like Brad that has that specialized knowledge, you have the opportunity to take what Congress did and turn it upside down and make the tax law work for you. For most of the people, they're going to get hammered by this law, or their beneficiaries are. That's 99% of the people. But the 1% with the right advisor, what Congress did, they actually incentivize people to do the better planning now they probably should have been doing all along.
Right.
IRAs are not a good asset to leave after death. They never really were. They were complicated at best, even if you got the stretch. Now they're horrible. I mean, and that's exactly what Congress wanted. They said, we don't want IRAs to be an estate planning vehicle. We only want it to be for retirement. And then many consumers and savers and retirees were outraged. They said, but we played by these rules. These are the rules you gave us. This is how we planned for the last 20 years.
Right.
And now you're pulling the rug out from under us. That's okay. Advisors like Brad have solutions to pull that IRA down and create tax-free retirement savings or a tax-free inheritance through either Roth IRAs or life insurance, where your beneficiaries can actually end up with better than what they had before. And the three things they're going to get is larger inheritances, more protection, and less tax. In some cases, no tax. Now, Congress knows that about this workaround, but they also know most people, 99% of people, will do nothing, and they get what I call the government plan. People that do nothing or have an ordinary advisor that doesn't know these strategies get the government plan. And I'm asking you, do you want your plan or the government plan? You have to have an advisor that knows these strategies to get your plan. Congress knows most people will just pay more, but you don't have to if you have the right advisor.
I realize a lot of times when I'm sitting across from someone, and I'm sure it's the same way for you, that you can talk so quickly and throw out all these terms, and then they're looking at you like, slow down.
Yeah, right.
So,
Yeah, people say that to me all the time. Where I
Right.
come from, this is normal. That's okay.
Right, so I want to throw out a number because I've not done it yet on the show, and people that listen to me for years know that our number is 866-780-SAFE. That's 866-780-7233.
Can you say that slower? See, that you should say slow.
A little slower. 7233, 866-780-SAFE. Most people that call in are asking for a copy of my book, Safe Money Matters, and it's talking about retirement planning. I talk about Ed throughout the book and a lot of his concepts. Chapter 8 in my book is tax-free beats taxable every day of the week.
You got it.
So that's the thing.
You're preaching to the choir here.
It's the single greatest benefit in the tax code. What is it?
Life insurance. The tax exemption for life insurance. I know when you hear life, and I don't sell life insurance. I'm a tax advisor. I don't sell stocks, bonds, funds, insurance, annuities. But I'm a tax advisor, and as a tax advisor, I have to tell you, the single biggest benefit in the tax code is the tax exemption for life insurance. And this is something that gives you stability and certainty. And you know what's happening now? Most people realize they can't trust Congress to keep their word on the tax laws that they need to rely on.
Right.
Remember, retirement is a long-term proposition. So now people are worried, they're fearful, they're angry, they're uncertain, they're anxious, they don't know what to do. They need a more stable plan. That's something where life insurance fits the bill by having larger inheritances, more tax-free access during your lifetime, more protection for your beneficiaries, and less tax. It's a perfect plan, not for everybody, but for people that have accumulated a large IRA that you want to have a legacy going to your children or even grandchildren. This is the way to undo what Congress has just done to you.
Ed's written a lot of books, and I remember years ago, parlay your IRA into a family fortune. But I read Stay Rich for Life, and it was one of those things I didn't know at the time. I get to chapter 12, and it tells this story about a husband and wife and this $1 million IRA, and how you actually kind of tick off the wife by saying, we're going to spend down that IRA.
Right.
And because you're going to get more back tax-free. I talk about in my book, I own 10 life insurance policies. So when people call in off the radio, they'll say, do you really own 10 life insurance policies? Why would you own 10? And I explain, I own them on my mother and my father and my children and on myself. And there's a reason why, with all the madness, I don't want people to know how much I'm worth dead. And it's all tax-free. But I've also built up a significant portion in a 401k like most people. And Uncle Sam owns that account with me. He reaches out and shakes your hand when you start working, and then he slaps the cuffs on you and says, now you're in a partnership with me. And unless you do a Roth conversion or something of that nature, we're partners from now on, and you're going to pay tax on those distributions at whatever rate I say, whenever I say to do it, 70 and a half, right. 70, whenever you take the distribution. So how is life insurance powerful to offset what's inside a 401k?
Well, at some point, you're going to take that money down. Now, the opportunity is right now. We still have the low rates from the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act from 2 years ago, but they're about to expire in a few years. The key is to get the IRA balance down at the lowest rates. It may pay to take some of that down. And whatever you do, of course, see an advisor like Brad that has this knowledge before you do anything. And never do this on your own. There's too much involved here, too many moving parts that somebody like Brad has the training on to understand your situation. But in general, I like the idea of pulling down this horrible asset, this IRA. You know, they created a trap. For years, Congress said, we want people to build up this IRA and the 401k. And then they say, okay, now we got you.
Yeah.
Now we're going to tax the heck out of it. So it's good for your retirement. Use it for RMDs or QCDs. Bring that balance down. But you might want to take more, take it down now, pay less tax now, and build up a bigger fund of money. It's not exempt from all of these rules to provide your kids to undo what Congress did. You could simulate the stretch IRA or leave more of them to them directly, or leave it in trust to them directly through life insurance, through a permanent life insurance policy that gives you both lifetime benefits because you could build tax-free during your life. The whole game here is building tax-free to eliminate the uncertainty of what future higher rates could do to your retirement savings. They're at high risk. They're under siege from Congress. So to build a bigger balance that will be tax-free to your beneficiaries with none of the restrictions and more stability as far as legislative and Congress getting at it.
And absolutely, according to that, adding to that, is that your 401k balance often is going up and down and up and down. We see that happen all the time. Permanent life insurance policies not going up and down. The balance of what's going to pass on to your family tax-free is not going to be affected by the stock market or anything
Right.
like that. It's a lot more stable way and leaves Uncle Sam on the bench. So a lot of times people say, well, how in the world could you do that? I can't afford the premiums. The beauty is showing someone how you can afford it and it not even affecting your lifestyle using a tax-infested account to build up a tax-free account.
Right. And it's not, all you're doing is moving from one pocket to another. Yeah, there may be some tax up front, but you got to look at the long-term big picture. What do you want at the end? If you want to leave more money to your family with less tax, this is the way to do it. And as you said, for most people, they have to take the RMDs anyway. But even before that, start piling up in a permanent policy, whatever works best for you, and always work with an advisor. It's not for everybody. And an advisor like Brad will tell you if it's right for you or not. But you have to use an advisor that has all of these tools and resources available. Most do not.
And keep in mind, as we kind of come to a close here today.
No, we want to keep going. What
we
is this
would
close?
talk forever.
We're just starting out.
With the Secure Act, like I said, the stretch is gone for a non-spouse except for exceptions. So keep in mind, if you did all this planning and you're thinking, well, I built up this $1 million IRA and my son and daughter's going to get it and then my grandchild's going to get it. No, they're not.
No.
They got 10 years to get, and I've heard all kinds. I'm sure
They don't even have 10 years because if you die now, there's a problem because these rules are in effect. You have to take advantage now only for a couple of reasons. The rules are in effect now, but also you have the low rates to take advantage of these. These low rates, use them or lose them.
Yeah, so if you decide, okay, I'm going to take 1/10 of it out and stretch it over 10 years, something could happen to the tax code that says
Right.
you may have wished you had done that the last 4 or
Right.
5 years before.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, so Ed, if you had to give advice to someone who's 65 years old, that's seemingly is the retirement age today, and they're about to retire, they've built up all their life savings in a 401k, and they're about to enter into retirement land. What advice
All right.
do you have for them?
Well, this may sound self-serving, but only work with an advisor who has the specialized knowledge, like you see right here, a member of Ed Slott's elite IRA advisor group. Again, we don't sell any products. We're an educational company. We're the only place in the country that has this kind of specialized knowledge for advisors. You want to have an advisor on your side that knows these rules, that does what's in your best interest. And you know, at every program and workshop, what do I always say? Always do what's best for the client. Do the right thing. You have the knowledge, the education. You don't need the gimmicks and all that a lot of these salespeople use to get people to do things that are not in their best interest. So it's time to move. You've done well. If you have savings, you did that because you did all the right things. The next right thing is the person, the advisor that may have got you here this far may not have the specialized knowledge to take you the rest of the way. You might have gotten up to the top of Mount Everest, but that's only halftime.
Right.
You hear stories of people die on the way down. They jump around on the top. We did it, and they never come back.
Right. That's right. So much of the time, you'll have someone call in. They've been listening to me for a long time, and they'll say, "Hey, I want to bring over my stuff for you to look at. I want you to see, what I have going on, and have I saved enough?" That's what everyone wants to know. This past week, I had one of those horror stories, and I kind of want to share that with you. I had a female call in and she said, my company plan is no longer being serviced by XYZ company. It's moving to a new company. And I was retiring anyway. So I asked them what I should do. And they said, well, we can just write you a check.
Oh, boy.
And they did. They wrote her a check. And so she said, so I put it in the bank and I want to come talk to you about what to do with it. Well, of course, you know what happens.
The whole thing is taxable.
The fat lady has saying, you took
no.
it and you put it, because there was no one there that had her best interest at
See,
heart.
now that's the end of her retirement savings.
That's it.
You don't want this to have one mistake. And this is the average advisor. They don't know that they don't know one mistake can end your retirement dreams.
So you're constantly telling us there's two main ways to move money, a rollover or a direct transfer. We always do direct
Right.
trustee
Only
to
way to
trustee
do it.
transfers. Why is that? Why are you using a trustee to trustee
Because
transfer?
there are, without getting into the complicated tax rules, there are once per year rules, 60-day rollover rules, other rules. You don't want to do that. You'll never have a problem. You'll never have a tax moving the money that way or an unwanted penalty. It's just too dangerous. Always move directly. All of our advisors, like Brad, we say it every meeting.
Drill
We
it
hit
down
you,
every
yeah.
time.
Well, it's the only way to move money. But that's just one item. You know, when you said, what do I say to a 60-year-old? You know, some of my general rules, you have to look at the long-term big picture. One thing I say on every show and every meeting, I say, it's time to start looking at ways to move your money from accounts that are forever taxed to accounts that are never taxed. Tax-free is always better. I believe tax rates are going to go up. Look at the deficits. It's all about the math. There's no doubt about it. You don't want to be stuck in the soup when rates go back up to 50, 60%. Do something about it now. Do it in a series of maybe of smaller annual Roth conversions. Start bringing that tax, you know, buying down the mortgage on your IRA. It's a debt. The IRA is a debt. You've got to start getting it down at low rates and building up tax-free so you're no longer at the mercy of Congress or the government or IRS. When retirement comes, the last thing you want to hear is your money's worth half as much because tax rates are 50%. So start that plan now. Get the right advisor. Only work with an educated advisor. That's why we created, that was the first question you asked, so here's the answer finally. Right. That's why we created Ed Slott's Elite IRA Advisor Group. It's the only group in the country that trains and educates financial advisors on the things most important to you, getting that money out, the tax planning, the taxes are everything.
We have CPAs, trust attorneys, and advisors that we all have to know this information. And
you're tested on it.
We are, absolutely. Test day twice a year is always fun. So hopefully those of you who have listened to me for 10 years know I'm always saying Ed Slott. Ed Slott says. Ed Slott says doing what's in your client's best interest is always in your best interest. That's why I'm a certified financial fiduciary, and I have taken an oath to do what is in my client's best interest at all times. Hey, I'm so glad that you listened today. I'm so thankful to have Ed on the show with us. If it doesn't matter where you live in the country, where you're listening to us right now, make sure you look up PBS Ed shows. He's had 6 different shows on PBS. The current show is Retire Safe and Secure.
That's right.
Find out whether or not it's on locally. I DVR it, and I watch it all the time.
It's a great message.
Absolutely. And I pick up things that I don't catch at our trainings by watching it on PBS. So, Ed, thank you so much for being here today.
I'm proud to have you as an over 10-year member. That's a major commitment to education. That's the kind of advisor you want on your team.
Thanks so much. And those of you that are listening, call in anytime, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 866-780-SAFE. That's 866-780-7233. Just ask for a copy of our free information. I'll give you a copy of my book, Safe Money Matters, absolutely free. 866-780-SAFE. Thanks, Ed.
Great to be here.
When the market goes up, you go up.